In a Violent Nature was directed by Chris Nash and also written by him, and is a movie which takes place from the perspective of a slasher killer who lives in a forest. I don't want to get too much into what he's doing, but there are some people who have taken something and he wants to hunt them down and kill them, and this movie exclusively follows his version of seeing things. I'm trying to think of the last time a horror movie of any kind looked at things exclusively from that perspective. Granted, every now and then you had scenes in horror movies which would be from that standpoint, something like, say, Halloween with the opening of, Michael Myers as a kid, but nothing like a perspective per se, at least not that I can think of. Maybe you guys might know if you've seen anything like that, but this makes this movie a very unique experience because you're mostly with him, and that means going on long walks with him as he goes from one spot to the other, really just taking his time when it comes to killing. And because of that, the movie is a slow burn for a long time, and you spend a lot of time just quietly walking through stuff, which is going to be such a dampener if you're somebody who wants very quick, gnarly kills. You will get those in A Violent Nature, and eventually when those happen, you're going to be very satisfied with what you see because they are very violent and very grotesque murders which take place, very unique murders at that as well. There's one scene in particular that had even the press audience cheering because it was this very bizarre kill, and I thought, well, I've never seen that before, and it was incredibly fascinating how that happened. So yeah, when you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about because there's a specific standout kill. You'll know which one it is when you get there. And I think as far as that's concerned, it makes this movie a very interesting experience. It also just made me appreciate just how much walking and how much time killers like this take with things. My friend at the screening actually made the joke, was like, at least he's getting his steps in. And I was like, yeah, that's true. It had a very similar, vibe to something like Friday the 13th, especially with some of the stuff that the killer in this one is doing has, some parallels to Jason, and so you'll definitely see a few things like that. But there's also a surprisingly touching storyline in there that you get bits and pieces of when it comes to why the killer is there at all and what has happened with this killer that has, sort of made him this way. And while you're following that, you kind of feel sympathy for him. At the same time, you have to realize he is still murdering, other innocent people very brutally. But they also give you enough that you look at the innocent people and go, wow, you suck. I don't like you at all. I mean, the dialogue for some of these, teenagers, young adults, which is there, it's almost purposefully, wonky and makes them sound like total assholes almost to, so that you watching the movie can go, yeah, I think, you know what, I think you got it coming for you. And then eventually, there's a brutal murder that happens, which is all beautifully done, by the way. Chris Nash does a really good job of that. And there are these really wonderfully filmed sequences throughout, some shots that were definitely like, wow, that's pretty gorgeous, actually. And again, very nicely follows the whole thing with the killer. It has barely any soundtrack. Actually, it doesn't really have a soundtrack at all. Most of the time, you're just, ambient forest noises and stuff like that. And there's a couple of scenes which will give you some exposition, stuff about what's happening and enough to kind of drive the plot forward. There's one very long scene around a campfire, which is basically just a character telling you what's going on. It kind of is that moment of the movie where you get some basis for everything that's to come. So I guess that makes sense. There had to be one scene like that, keeping it to the perspective of the killer, so you have him observing everything from a distance. I mean, it's not a POV movie by any means. I mean, it is third person. There's a camera following him the entire time. But it was nicely done. There's very bare bones minimum stuff otherwise going on with the characters. You don't get much when it comes to development in that sense. If that's something that you want out of this movie, there's not much. Very much so a case of you get some dialogue with them, you have some idea of who these people are, and then it's off to the death sequences. And there is one thing also that happens towards the end of the movie, which I don't think it really worked as well for me. There is a bit of a break in the way the film is being presented. I don't know how this is going to be received. I think some people might really like it. Like I did, I enjoyed it. Some people might not like it at all because again, it's a very slow, deliberately done movie. It has a very, it takes its time and then some when it comes to getting to the stuff that you want to see. It very much delivers on the stuff you want to see too, but definitely give it some time. There is patience involved with this one. And overall, I enjoyed the movie, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. Despite a few gripes here and there, I do recommend checking it out. It'll be out on Shudder, I think, at some point. It'll be in theaters next week, so definitely check it out over there first, and let me know what you guys think. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.